need to respect the dignity of women completely.
Yeah, Joan, this is Chuck Lee, and we're live on the air. And I'm going to put you on a speakerphone. Is our speakerphone working?
Yes, well, at least I can hear you.
Okay. Now, I talked to you earlier today, and maybe I kind of surprised you that I did call you, but we're on the air live, and we just started the program about 6 minutes ago. And you and I were discussing earlier about the upcoming primary election for all the races in the state, and actually national. There's a U.S. Congress race that has several candidates in it, and a governor's race. And so there's been some controversy. I've talked to people that have voted for up to 60 years, and they just don't seem to understand this primary system. Now, is it that complicated?
Well, it's not really all that complicated, but each September primary, there does seem to be some confusion out there. What the voters have to remember is what they're doing in September is electing their candidates in their party to appear on the November ballot. So in other words, the Democrats are going to go in, vote on the Democratic ballot to determine which candidate they want to appear as a Democrat in November. The same thing, the Republicans will vote for their candidates to appear on the ballot in November. So what we're really doing is it could be considered as 6 separate elections, one for each party. So the first thing the voters have to do, of course, when they go into the polls, is to determine which party they're going to pick to vote in. Okay. So it's not really a race between a Democrat and a Republican, or a Republican and a taxpayer, for instance. It's really the party in which somebody is going to vote for, the candidates within that party they want to appear on the November ballot.
Okay, well, I kind of likened it to like a basketball tournament. Now, in the case of the Republicans, there's two.
Exactly.
Take the 3rd district race. There's 2 Republicans running, Gunderson and Brill. Now, for that to be done properly, say somebody walks in there to the election balloting location and they say, I want to declare as a Republican, and they get, so then they've got to vote straight Republican all the way through their ballot, right?
The only thing is when a voter goes in, they do not have to declare their party.
Okay.
What we do in Wisconsin is give them a ballot with all 6 parties on it. Once they're in the polling booth, however, they do have to pick their party. If they vary between parties, they're going to wreck their ballot. Nothing will be counted, in other words.
So when they come out of the ballot booth and they stick it in the computer inside the city of Eau Claire, it's going to spit it back out, right?
That's correct. In the city of Eau Claire, it's going to be determined as an invalid ballot if someone does vary between the parties. In other words, if they vote for one candidate in the Democratic Party, they go to the next office and vote for someone in the Republican Party. There's a New Progressive Party on the ballot, a Taxpayers Party. If they vary between all of those parties in different offices, their ballot will be invalid. It will spit out and tell the voter that they have invalidated their ballot. They can only vote for one party. In that case, they will have 2 other opportunities to correct that, and so that their ballot and votes do count.
Okay, so an example would be, say, I'm in there and I'm looking at this ballot, and you say it's a 2-sided ballot this time. On one side, you'll roughly have the Democrat and Republican in columns, and then on the reverse side, you'll have the other parties.
That's correct.
In columns. Okay, say I'm looking at a ballot then, and I see on the Republican side, I'm looking and I see, yeah, Brill's a nice guy, so I go over there and I X him, but then I get down and say, well, I know Tommy Thompson's a popular governor, but I just don't like him. I'm going to vote for Koala. So they jump over there and they X out Koala on the Democratic side. Now, that ballot is considered soiled then until they repair it.
Exactly. It will be invalid, and the voter will be given that message on the piece of equipment that they're feeding their ballot in, and that will afford them the opportunity to rip up that ballot, get a new ballot, and re-vote.
Okay, now I know there was a little controversy and fighting and bickering, but the city finally got that in place now, so that'll kick it out. But how about out there in the boondocks, out in, say, Fairchild, where they're just getting telephones out there, and they don't have that computerized system yet?
Out in the county where there are no ward counters, that's correct. Those errors do not show up till it comes to the central counting at the courthouse. So unfortunately, those errors can exist at the courthouse. Those ballots, as they go through our counter, do shoot up into what we call an outstack bin. And if the poll workers at that point can determine the intent of that voter, they do duplicate the ballot. But in the case of not being able to determine the intent, then yes, that's a ballot then that does not count.
Okay, now poll workers. Now in the primary, will there be like a poll worker from each party sitting there watching these ballots to make sure that they're not thrown out, or how does that work?
Poll workers, there's always an uneven number of poll workers, and they're evenly split between the two major political parties. The extra poll worker is usually from the party who had the highest number of votes at the last election. So they are there keeping an eye on that kind of thing. They're also very interested. They want the voters to vote correctly. So they are there to assist and educate and help the voters get through as best as possible, because obviously they're there for a patriotic kind of duty as well as, watching for the political parties. There will be large signs at each voting place as well as inside the booths that will caution the voters that they indeed cannot cross over. They can only choose one political party and vote within that political party.
So that sign will actually say, please do not cross over, or no crossing over? Or...
It cautions the voter that their ballot may be invalid if indeed they do that.
Uh-huh. So what we've got here then is we've got a mini election in the primary, and we've got a Democratic election where there's opponents running for an office. We've got a Republican election, U.S. taxpayers, and several other of the socialist parties.
Libertarian also.
Okay. Now they're kind of running amongst themselves, and they're weeding,
correct.
And it's kind of a weeding out process where, like in the Democratic 3rd District, there's 4 people running. Now that will, through that primary, they'll decide one person who gets through the primary into the general election. Now that's done everywhere where there's more than one person running.
That's correct.
Now, also, like say on the Democratic one, there's 4 people already running. Will there also be a blank space there for a write-in?
Always. There's always a write-in line in the primary. So even though there might be one candidate, there will be a write-in line for anyone who wishes to do that. What the voter has to remember is if they wish to write in, they write the name in, and they also must connect the arrow. That's what our equipment reads, are the arrows.
Uh-huh. Okay, for the viewers that, I guess we had audio problems the first 3 minutes of the show. We are talking with Joanne Lester from the Eau Claire County Clerk's Office here in Eau Claire, and she is telling us how the primary system works, Fred. Now, did you have any questions before we...
No, I think she did a very good job of explaining it.
Now, Fred, how long have you been voting? Are you still confused about this deal?
No.
I know some people have been voting 50, 60 years, and when it comes to these primaries, it confuses them.
That's
Well, you
true.
gotta-
We do get telephone calls after every primary. There's a certain number of people who are very annoyed because they have to stick to one political party. So what they have to remember is that's exactly what the primary is. It's political parties picking their candidates for the November ballot.
So there's no such thing as people trying to sabotage by saying 10,000 Democrats are going to go in there and they're going to switch over just for one candidate and they're going to put in a weak Republican, or vice versa. That's eliminated through this process.
It's eliminated in this process unless that person just wants to vote for that one office in that party and nothing else on the ballot.
Okay, then it's countable.
If that's all they vote for, that would be countable, sure.
Okay, well, we'll want to thank you
I
for...
don't think very many people do that. I think it's probably a floating thing out there. But I think for the most people, those voters who go to the poll have a real sincere duty, and I think they take it very seriously.
Well, especially when you have several candidates in one party. They want to...
Exactly.
It's just like it's an election within an election. They want to put the best person that they think forward into that general election.
That's probably a good way of saying it. It is kind of a mini election, a mini caucus to determine their candidate for November.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, I want to thank you for your time, and we'll probably call again closer to the primary and try this one more time to make sure that the voters are fully aware of how the process works. So thanks a lot, John.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll see you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, Fred, that was Joanne Lester, and I guess we had some technical difficulties at the beginning, Fred, so we're going to have to start all over again and introduce you as Fred the True Stafford. And we want the viewers to know that you had a minor operation, Fred. And will you please tell the viewers again what exactly happened, because we lost that first
We
one.
had an operation for skin cancer.
And it was kind of a spot on your forehead that you had a
Yes.
Band-Aid on, and some kids called in and over the years and asked what it was and gave you a hard time, but you've got that corrected now, right?
Hopefully.
You've got a big old bandage on there. It looks like you just came back from Bosnia. You've been fighting over there. But actually it was an operation. And you got another operation behind the ear, and what did they do to that one?
Took a skin graft and put it over where the skin cancer was.
Okay, so that's why your ear's covered up with a bandage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that noticeable, because I'm looking at the monitor, Fred, and you can't even tell it.
Mm.
So hopefully you even got a little black eye out of the deal. That's how rough of some doctors must get rough when they're punching.
I don't
and stuff.
know. I don't know about
Well, they
that.
pick you up and over their head and drop you and everything, just like in wrestling, or what? You come out
No.
there with a black eye.
No.
Okay. All right, Fred. Well, we just cleared this thing up.
Are you going
about
to
the
show
primary.
that?
Well, this was a little example of what she was just talking about on the phone, Fred. Now, okay. I picked the 3rd district race as an example. But then below that, I picked to say that there's a governor's race. There's at least 3 candidates and possibly more. So say you're voting Democrat, and you go down here and you pick this guy right here, and you check that, or in the case of the local, you just draw a line connecting the lines. Then you couldn't jump over here and vote for this guy for governor, because this would be invalid, and they'd kick that ballot out, Fred.
Yes.
So you got to stay within your own party. If you're going to vote Democrat, you want to vote Democrat all the way down that ticket. And it's a long ballot this time because there's a lot of people running. If you're going to vote straight Republican, you want to stay within that column and vote the various people that are running against each other there.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is, it's a mini election within an election. If you're going to vote straight U.S. Taxpayers Party, you'd vote here, but then you wouldn't jump over here and come down here and vote for Qualla. You'd stay within your own party.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we got that cleared up now, Fred. So, all right, Fred. Now we come to the part of the show where we stump the stars, and you're the star.
I don't know.
And you know, Fred, we haven't given any recognition to Chris and Cliff Economaki, the Siamese twins of engineering.
Oh.
Now, have I ever told you on the show how they ever made it down?
Too many times. Too many
Well,
times.
I thought we might go through it one more time.
I don't want to listen. I don't want to
new
listen.
viewers, Fred.
Well, let them tune
You know,
into
you
one
can
of the
actually
old
say
programs.
that you've hard of hearing now, Fred, because you're working on one ear there
Yeah.
for the next few days until you get that bandage off.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, first we'll go to this here, Fred. July 31st, 1975, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Detroit, actually, yeah, it was Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah.
Back seat of a car, probably sitting there smoking a cigar with one of his union buddies. What happened?
Jimmy Hoffa disappeared?
That's right. We try to be correct on the show, and once again, Fred has shown why he's called Fred the True Stafford. Hit it right on the nail, right on the head. July 31st, 1975, Jimmy Hoffa disappeared, never to be seen again, Fred. Some people say he's out in the New York Giants football field. Other people say he's in a barrel in some dump somewhere. Other people say he was ground up as hamburger and served to at that time, I guess it would be President Ford at some dinner up there. It's amazing, Fred. But Jimmy Hoffa, gone but not forgotten. All right, Fred, what do you got there?
Well,
What do you got in the Wanderer
oh, we got lots of things
there? Been
here.
wandering around there in the Wanderer.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Helms Amendment stops U.S. Department of Agriculture's promotion of homosexuality. By a vote of 92 to 8, the U.S. Senate approved an amendment to the $67.98 billion Agriculture Department Appropriations Bill, which prevents the USDA from using U.S. tax dollars to encourage its employees or officials to accept homosexuality as a legitimate or a normal lifestyle. The 8 senators who voted against the Helms Amendment are Senator Barbara Boxer of California, Russell Feingold of Wisconsin, Ted Kennedy of Massachusetts, Daniel Monahan of New York, Patty Murray of Washington, Bob Packwood of Oregon, and Claiborne Pell of Rhode Island, and Paul Wellstone of Minnesota. Interesting.
So exactly what does that do then?
Well, they can't use their tax dollars to promote this lifestyle, which Mike Espy wanted to do. It was an equally aggressive policy to root out homophobia and punish anyone suspected of harboring thoughts or feelings disapproving of homosexuality.
Huh. I mean, actually, they root out people that didn't approve.
Sure, if you didn't agree with it, they probably get rid of you, fire you.
That's amazing. Okay, Fred. You know, there's something been in the news here quite recently, and we've talked a little bit about it, but it's called the Haiti situation. Haiti is on the island of Hispaniola. It's shared with the Dominican Republic. Been there for many, many years, that island, Fred. You know, that
Yes.
island's been there for years.
Yes.
But now it's split almost down the middle. On the left side, if you look on a map, closest to Cuba is Haiti. On the east side of the island, you have the Dominican Republic. I think it's roughly west and east.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's the way it shows up on a map. But you know, Fred, the United Nations, on a vote, and a unanimous vote in the Security Council, voted 12-0 with 2 abstentions, China and Brazil, to clear the way for the possible U.S.-led invasion of Haiti. So that was July 31st. To oust the military-backed government and restore ousted President Jean-Bertrand Aristide.
Yeah, he's a mental case and has been expelled from the Silesian Order because of his radical class warfare program.
Now, what exactly is the Silesian Order? Is that from Italy?
It's an order which
Sicilian?
is dedicated to teaching the poor, primarily, skills which will enable them to get a job and a halfway decent wage.
Okay, so he started out as a Roman Catholic priest in that
Right.
order in Haiti.
Yes.
He was appointed by Rome.
And 3 times he was asked by leaders of the Silesian Order, the provincial, to stop what he was doing. And he agreed and then didn't do it.
Okay, now, so in 1988, he was finally expelled
Right.
by Rome. And I guess what he was doing, the main reason, according to this article, was for preaching the righteousness of class violence, which is a classical communist dogma,
Right.
where you pit one class against another in class warfare and class struggle. And so that's what he was pushing down in Haiti. Well, you know, Haiti's one of the poorest countries on earth. So if you come along and tell somebody that's that poor that's going to give you a better life, it starts to cause class envy and problems, Fred, amongst the classes, which there's only probably 2 classes down there. The middle class is pretty much non-existent. There's a rich class and then there's a poverty class.
Unfortunately, in the countries south of our border, that is quite true.
Now, Aristide, I mean, before him, during him, and after him, that was that class system. And it still goes on today. We can't blame it on the rulers today. But what the president has created is a boycott around that island.
Which is causing all kinds of problems for the people who are living on it, shortages of food, medicine, etc. And if we were to withdraw that blockade, things would probably get better for a lot of people in a hurry.
Well, because of the blockade, we've got people fleeing on sea in these rickety boats because that's all they can afford. So they're drowning at sea. Men, women, children, old people are dying at sea trying to flee the conditions where they're being starved and no gasoline, not much food.
In other words, we're causing the problem.
So what we got here is a siege mentality, like they did in the Old Testament. They would surround a city and then block off supplies from coming in, down to the point where people started dying of starvation, and we've got babies in Haiti now that are dying from malnutrition. A direct cause of the Clinton blockade. So,
something else you should mention there, Mr. Aristide advocated the use of necklacing, which is putting a tire soaked in gasoline around people they wanted to get rid of and setting it on fire.
okay, Aristide came to power in 1991, roughly about February or March of that year. One of the first things he did, Fred, was he forcibly removed the rural mayors on the island, on their half of the island. And he replaced them with what's called the Lavalas, or the flood members. So they come into a village, they would forcibly remove the mayor, and they would put in these Lavalas, or flood members.
Marxists.
And that was a loose coalition of radicals and Marxist activists, which is basically where Aristide had his roots and his support, his prime support with Marxist radicals. So that's who he would replace the duly elected mayors with. He'd come in and they put him in these Lavalas in their place. And then he unilaterally named 5 judges, including the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, without the approval, or which is a role of the Senate in Haiti. Aristide bypassed the Senate and just appointed these people himself.
Yes.
So then he loosed these Lavala mobs and let them rampage through the streets, and they killed 100 people during January 5th and 6th of 1991. And then he sent a message to Gorbachev, who was in trouble himself at the time. He said to Gorbachev, Aristide offered the Soviet president his regrets that conditions did not allow the people of the Soviet Union to do what the Haitian people did on the night of January 5th and 6th, 1991. Well, that was the night where the Aristide mobs roamed through the streets and destroyed non-Aristide Lavala businesses and killed over 100 people. And Aristide said it was a cleansing. So to kill 100 people to Aristide is cleansing the community of people that were...
He certainly has deviated from love thy neighbor policy.
Okay, and on September 27th of that year, he gave a speech extolling necklacing. And 2 nights later, one of the people he was giving the speech against was killed in his jail cell. And the soldier that did the killing was whisked off into the United States Witness Protection Program. Isn't that nice?
It's wonderful.
And that's where he's at today. And another time, Lavala crowds in the town of Les Cayes necklaced Silvio Claude, an outspoken political opponent of Aristide. And there's photos of that incident show Lavala's delegate Jean-Claude Jean-Baptiste at the front of the crowd, Fred. Probably standing there with the gasoline in the tire, probably saying no justice, no peace, or whatever. But anyway, and Aristide is fond of saying this about the United States. And he says that it's the deadly economic infection called capitalism. And for years, anytime he'd give a speech, he would usually denounce the United States in his speeches. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not surprised.
So we've got a Marxist down there named Aristide that got thrown out of power by the people because of his necklacing advocacy, and the people that he actually did have necklaced, they had enemies that were murdered, including 100 people in one night. So he flees to the United States, and Socialist Clinton says, "Come, my brother, we'll help you get back in there." And so that's what's going on now. So Clinton tried to bluff. He went down there with some soldiers and tried to bluff his way in there, and the mobs at the dock said, "You're not coming in here." And the American soldiers left with their tail between their legs. So because of the embargo, things have gotten worse. So now the United Nations is called in, Fred, and now we're going to have a unilateral force under one power.
Well, it looks like what we're doing, and this has been going on for some time under the United Nations, we are supporting the radical Marxists in various countries and put them in power, and one of those places was South Africa, where Nelson Mandela was put into power.
Yes, we dealt with Nelson Boom Boom Mandela many times on this program, Fred, right up to the day he was elected. But here's the highlights of the United Nations resolution, Fred. It authorizes member states, which is about 170, roughly somewhere between there and 200 states, everything from Russia to Brazil. All these states are called authorized members. It authorizes member states to form a multinational force under a unified command. In other words, they're under the United Nations. They wear the blue helmets that say UN on them. And there might be a Russian general in charge of all these member countries that have supplied troops to go in there and invade Haiti.
Well, one thing the people who are listening to this program ought to write or telephone their U.S. senators and congressmen and tell them no, no, no.
Tell them to lift the embargo.
Yeah.
Let the place get back to normal. And then come in there with humanitarian aid. Start giving people injections to fight off some of the diseases and help drill wells and help with building houses and stuff. Let's do something
right.
constructive instead of going in there and wiping Haiti off the map just so that we can install a communist. Okay, Fred, well, here's another one of the highlights. It calls on, after this unified command is formed, they will be allowed to use all necessary means to facilitate the departure of Haiti's military. It calls on the force to establish and maintain a secure and stable environment, assures the prompt return of the country's legitimately elected president, and restore the legitimate authorities of the Haitian government. And it approves the establishment of up to 60 UN observers to monitor and coordinate with the U.S.-led multinational force. There it is, Fred. This is going to be a U.S.-led multinational force. So in other words, we're going to provide the human fodder to go in there and occupy. Now, it's not the first time we occupied this country, Fred.
No.
In Haiti, we occupied it from 1915 to 1934. Almost 20 years.
We didn't change much of anything either with all of that occupation.
So last time we thought we were going to go in there and straighten out a little mess, and we spent 20 years there in Haiti. Okay, this establishes a 6,000-member UN peacekeeping force to take over from the multinational intervention force when the Security Council certifies that a secure and stable environment has been created. So we're going to provide the frontline troops, America is, to go in there and rush the
We're
beaches.
going to interfere in that internal affairs of another nation.
But the initial clashes, Fred, are going to be between Americans and Haitians. And that's where we're going to lose some troops. And then once we've occupied and killed off as many of the opposition as we can until they submit, then it's the 6,000-member peacekeeping force will move in and relieve the Americans who are leading what they call the multinational force.
Well, it certainly is difficult to understand why we would want to put a Marxist, a communist, in power.
It's part of the New World Order, Fred. If he's duly elected, then we put him in, whether he's Idi Amin or Jimmy Carter. You know, if we really get sucked into this one world government stuff, the United Nations could say, well, we're having trouble in Florida. There's a lot of strife down there. There's some riots and stuff. Well, let's send in a multinational UN force led by a Soviet general, and we'll quell that rebellion down there in Florida. And if the United States is truly a member of the one world government, they'll say, okay, come on in. And that's what it'll be, because that's what we're doing in Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
We're sending foreign troops in there under the United Nations banner. So, then, Fred, another one of the highlights is it calls on the UN peacekeepers known as the UN mission in Haiti. They've even got a nickname for it, UNMIH. UNMIH, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That's the initials for it. To help train Haiti's new armed forces. And then there's create a civilian police force, a new police force, and help organize free and fair elections.
Mm.
That's supposed to be the election should be by 1995. And the resolution gives the peacekeepers an initial mandate of 6 months and says they should complete their mission by February of '96.
Just like we did in Somalia, I guess, huh?
Yeah. Okay, Fred, we're going to try and take a call here and see what's happening. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Chuck.
Yes.
Hi. Do you guys have a fan club?
No, do you want to start one?
Yeah, I'll be the president.
All right.
And I was wondering, when you were in jail, did you lift weights? Or didn't you go to jail?
Yeah, I was in a farm camp for most of the time, and they had weights there. They wasn't the best, but
How do you feel about them not letting the prisoners do it anymore? That bad or good?
it's bad because it just gives them more time to think up devious ways to outwit the guards and to, I'd rather see them lifting weights
I
than
think they should let them.
lifting weights and sharpening knives to stab each other.
So how's Fred doing after his surgery?
Well, how you
All
doing,
right.
Fred?
All right.
One of your admirers did you see that? You probably saw Fred's wound on his head. He's kind of bandaged up. It looks like he just got back from Haiti. You aren't one of that.
No,
You're not part of that
no,
multinational force.
no.
Okay, just checking.
Where do you buy that brand of pop that you guys have?
This
Ah,
Flavin' Pop you can find at funeral homes and thrift
Yeah.
sales everywhere.
That's where it belongs to.
Funeral homes.
People who
and thrift-
drink that don't walk out of there. They carry them out in a box.
Fred, I understand that they're actually replacing formaldehyde with this and using it in the process of
Yeah, it looks like it.
the funeral home process there, where they treat the bodies for.
Say, while you're talking about that, Chuck, here, how much you take to sell the rights to that there?
Nothing.
Yeah,
What do you got,
Take
new
a,
bill?
take a look in there.
Okay, you see the latest bill here. You'll be seeing these all around the nation, starting November 8th, 1994. It's a new $20 bill.
When are you going to run for president?
Well, after I get elected to Congress, then we'll run for president in '96. But this is a new $20 bill that you'll be seeing all over the nation. And right now you can get them at funeral homes and thrift sales everywhere. Okay. Does that answer your question, caller?
Oh, basically.
All right. Well, thanks for calling in.
Yeah, bye.
Okay. Okay, Fred.
Got a call on too.
Now, you're sure you weren't part of that multinational,
You bet.
some kind of point man or something out there and you got wounded?
No way.
All right. Okay, Fred. Now you know the U.S. jumped right to the plate there and they said, yeah, we'll lead the multinational force to restore the legitimate government in Haiti.
You know, it's rather interesting that our president is so anxious to put American troops in there when he refused to be drafted and did everything he could to evade it and organized protests against the Vietnam War when he had an opportunity to go and serve.
The presidents do this, Fred. In their first term, they like to have a bloody little war. They've been doing it down in the Caribbean for years. They go in there and they want to have a surgical strike. Sometimes they get bogged down. Other times, like Grenada, they can get in and out, Panama in and out. But it boosts the ratings, and people tend to flock around their president in that so-called emergency. Now, do we really have an emergency with Haiti? Is Haiti going to bomb us?
No.
We probably got, what, 1 million Haitians already living in the United States. And we
Yes.
got a fifth column that's going to attack the White House, or what?
No.
Okay, well, anyway.
They ought to when he's doing that.
Anyway, Fred, we're going to go in there and we're going to do this to boost Clinton's failing polls and lift him up in the polls a little bit, just in time for the fall elections. Isn't that dandy? Okay, go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, well, I'd like to change the subject for a little bit. I didn't hear the very first part of your show, and I missed last week's show, so I don't know if you had anything on it, but what is your take about the anti-abortionists shooting I can't remember if it was the doctors or the recent shootings by the anti-abortionists?
Well, that happened after our last Monday show, and actually we started off the show talking about Fred's wounds. Thanks for calling. Fred's wounds and in his recent clandestine role in the multinational force. I bet you anything, Fred, you were down there on you're part of an advance team for the invasion of Haiti.
Absolutely not.
All right.
That's a bold-faced lie.
Let's see the wound then.
No, let's talk about what that man wants to talk about.
Okay, Fred, what do you think about that situation?
Well, it's unfortunate that that happened. And that man deserves to be dealt with fairly and sternly. No one has the right to kill another here in our country, not even the mother to take the life of the child that she has conceived.
Well, that's precisely what he was protesting against for years, very vocally.
Yeah.
And then he turned around, took a shotgun, and blew away 2 people and wounded a 3rd.
Well, that's not right.
So that day, Fred, there was no babies rescued. There was 2 people murdered. Now, he's facing a death penalty in that state. And, you know, you have to be stern, Fred, because if this thing gets to be...
right, you have to deal with that's not right.
If this thing gets to be...
even though that doctor was also involved in killing of babies,
but you know,
it's not just to kill him for that.
The doctor has a maker that he has to face.
Right.
And he was dispatched there just recently now. But it wasn't that man's time to eliminate that other man.
No.
You know. So we can't condone that, Fred, because the pro-life movement is about life, not about murder.
Very true.
Okay. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, Fred, you're looking pretty sharp there yet. I didn't hurt you too bad.
A tip of the old hat. Remember that cartoon, Fred? Or what?
Did you see me before?
Yeah, I've seen you before. What are you today, doctor, professor, or what are you?
He's Fred
No.
the True Staffer. That's been his
Okay,
name
that's
for...
good. I'd like to ask a couple questions here. Chuck, you said you're running for Congress. What are you hearing out on the campaign trail? What does it look like? Do you think Gunderson's beatable this time around? And I noticed when you look in the paper, you see just as many auctions for farms. And he claims to be on the Agriculture Committee, and he's supposed to be the farmer's friend. But since he's been in office, there's just as many farmers going out of business. So he tells us one thing back home and does another out there.
Well, what was the first part of that again?
What are you finding on the campaign trail?
Well, when I first started running, I came in late. Didn't start till July 1st. And in 5 days, I got over 1,000 signatures personally, and then some helpers got another 550, and I think we settled on about 1,500 of them being valid. And, you know, I had a clipboard with my
Yes.
blank list, and people would, I'd say, I'm running for Congress against Steve Gunderson. In many cases, they would literally grab it out of my hand to sign it. Now, this just wasn't in Eau Claire. I was in La Crosse and Menominee, and there was petitions that were got way down in southern Wisconsin, and so it's not just localized here in Eau Claire. And I see that there's an anti-Gunderson sentiment out there, and a lot of people say he's been in there too long, and that's why I'm pushing for definite term limits. And so are, from surveys, so are 75% of the rest of the nation. If the surveys hold true throughout the nation, Fred, 75% of the people say it's the only way we can get them rascals out of there, short of dynamite, is to have term limits, because they get entrenched in there. They get all the goodies, all the freebies, all of the multi-million-dollar retirement plans, all of the free franking privileges where they can produce, print, and have the U.S. Post Office deliver, up in Gunderson's case, just recently, up to 294,000 brochures, which is basically a propaganda piece for his reelection, at the government, at the U.S. taxpayers' expense. The printing, and they use recycled print paper, so that was more expensive.
Yes.
Folding, the delivery to the post office, and all the postal employees sorting through that and getting it out to the
Yes.
294,000 pieces, Fred, jettisoned
Right.
into the 3rd District at taxpayers' expense, and the taxpayers paid for the printing cost and the postage. Now, for me as a candidate, where am I going to get $70,000 to compete against that? And Gunderson deliberately did it just a few days before the deadline to where he was not allowed to do that. But that's just one of the perks of being the incumbent, Fred. You got the full weight and all the media and everything right there at your disposal anytime you want it. So, he's out of touch with the district. There's a lot of anti-Gunderson sentiment out there on several different issues, including farming. There are a lot of farmers that are in dire straits out there. family farmer is on the ropes in this country, Fred.
Well, it's true, and I don't know what you can do to change that. And having been a district manager for the National Federation of Independent Business for about a half years, I found as I went into smaller towns, gas stations, garages, automobile dealers, grocery stores, you name it, all kinds of stores, hardware stores, going out of business because there wasn't enough business there to sustain them with the loss of the family farms,
That's why, Fred,
feed mills, and so forth.
Fred, when I take office in January of 1995, my first bill to be introduced is the Family Farm Preservation Act of 1995. Now, that's going to help the family farmer, but it's also going to help create new farmers. Remember the old slogan, Fred, 40 acres and a mule? Well, we're going to have to update that a little bit, boost that acreage up to between 200 and 1,000 acres, and we're going to have to help these new farmers buy tractors and equipment. It takes more money, but the family farm used to be the nucleus of the United States, Fred. That's who produced the breadbasket for the United States and the world, and they still do.
You know, it's rather interesting, though. I notice as I travel in this area, more and more Amish farms.
That's right, because the Amish have a different system. They help. If you need a barn built, all the Amish from miles around will come and they'll put that barn up in one day, Fred. But you know how they pay each other back? When John Yoder down the road wants a barn built, then you come down and help him build his. That's how they pay each other back. They don't transfer money, they just transfer labor. So anyway, the Family Farm Preservation Act is going to get farmers out of this, out of producing this poison called tobacco. We've got thousands of farmers involved in that because they think that's the only cash crop that they can grow to stay in business. We're going to help them get off that addiction. They're addicted to growing that because the American public is addicted to smoking it. So we've got a legal drug out there being produced by farmers because they need the money to stay in business. So we're going to help them transfer over to a better, different cash crops, healthy cash crops.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, we're going to help farmers with grants. We're going to take some of that foreign money that's going down those rat holes in Russia and South America, where that money, you give it to a dictator and all of a sudden you find it in a Swiss bank account. You don't find it helping the people of that country. So we're going to remove some of that rat hole money and we're going to give it to the Family Farm Preservation Act to help young farmers get to stay in business and to create new farms. Now, Tommy Thompson is doing something, kind of a pilot program with only $10 million in this state, Fred.
Yes.
But, you know, that boils down to about one farm per county. There's 72 counties. There's enough money in that program, $10 million, just to create one new farm in each county. We want that greatly expanded so that we have enough money to create farms in all 50 states, including Alaska and Hawaii. We're going to help these farmers stay in business. And you know, Fred, there's thousands of retired farmers out there that are just eagerly waiting to help some young farmer learn how to farm and do it properly and test the soils and set up erosion control and proper ways to handle silage and manure and runoff and things. There's thousands of retired farmers out there that can be used as mentors to help the young farmers that are just coming online. So we're going to have a domestic aid program instead of foreign aid. We're going to shift some of that rat hole foreign aid money over here, and we're going to help, and we're going to call it domestic aid.
Yes.
That's the Family Farm Preservation Act of 1995. Going to be introduced in January.
Yes.
Of next year.
Can I ask one quick question and I'll hang up?
All right.
Either one of you can answer this or both. Why do you think Gunderson ain't telling the people if he's gay or not? What's he hiding? And why don't he tell the American people if he is? They worry about your personal life. They worry about the bear on the Democrat ticket's personal life. Why not Gunderson's personal life? Is he gay or isn't he gay? Why don't he tell the American people? What's he hiding? And I'll hang up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Fred, what's the deal there?
Well, I think it would be damaging to his candidacy, so he's not going to admit it.
You know, Fred, they talk about the Beltway mentality. Inside the Beltway, they got the mini Beltway down there in Madison. You know, they say Madison's surrounded by reality, and when you get in Madison, everything just spins out of control. Well, in Washington, you got a much more bigger, gianter system just like that, where you got this beltway mentality where anything goes inside there, you know, any kind of lifestyle, or who's chasing who, and who's the drunk in the House and the Congress, and
All right.
who's the drug addict and all that, and okay, out there, but those people have to come back every 2 years to good old conservative 3rd District, 4th District, 5th District of Wisconsin. They've got to come back to those constituents and prove that they're worthy of being reelected.
Yes.
So do you think that kind of, that all that homosexuality stuff sells back here in the 3rd District?
Well, I think that some people are unwilling to believe it, but there are enough people who have some concern about it.
Well, I think so. When Ivor Gunderson's interviewed now, they seem to hit on that as one of the hot button issues that people want to talk about. We end up talking about it on this show, Fred.
Yeah.
It never fails that somebody calls in and we end up talking about that. It seems to be
Okay.
one of the main issues out there.
Right.
But until Gunderson stands up publicly in front of TV cameras and says, yes, I'm a homosexual and I'm married to another man, or whatever he says, you know, it's kind of hard for us to accuse him of it. That's Gunderson's responsibility to reveal that, not mine or yours.
Okay.
All right. So, what do you got there real quick? Because we got dozens of calls waiting, Fred. We've got a fleet of operators in the other room eagerly standing by, and Chris and Cliff Economaki, the Siamese twins of engineering, are hovering over them, making sure that we get these calls out here.
Cardinal O'Connor vows to shut down Catholic hospitals if abortion coverage is mandated. At a July 13th press conference at the Galt House Hotel here in Louisville, John Cardinal O'Connor reaffirmed his commitment to the exclusion of abortion coverage in any health care legislation. He stated he would close down the Catholic health care facilities in his archdiocese if abortion was mandated.
What year was that?
That was just here on July the 13th.
Well, I'm glad to see that they're hanging tough on that issue, Fred. Just think if you had a pope in Rome, they would just say, that's just another issue. Come, take it or leave it. 3 exceptions, 4 exceptions, 5 exceptions. Some abortions are good, some are bad. What if your next pope's like that, Fred? What would happen to the Catholic Church?
It would cease to exist.
Would there be chaos in it?
Yes.
You have to have somebody that's going to take a stand there on that, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, he's led the way, Fred. You have to give him credit for it. And I know he tries to keep the people underneath him in line on that issue, too, at least the priests. All right, Fred. We're going to take a call, but first, back to Stump the Stars. Now, you were right. You're batting 1,000 today, Fred. Even though you're wounded, you just got back from Haiti. August 1st, 1966, roughly about 10 o'clock in the morning, a man carried some satchels into a building. University of Texas, Austin.
Yeah,
What did he do?
he shot a number of people.
Over thousands of miles away, Americans were dying in Vietnam. And what happened on this peaceful and tranquil University of Texas campus?
He shot a number of people.
A number is right, Fred. He was one of the first mass murderers that were glorified in this country, and the media jumped on it. And his name was Charles Whitman.
Mm-hmm.
And what was he, Fred? Besides a man with a bunch of guns and ammunition and a marksman. He was a United States Marine.
Hmm.
Anyway, he carried a rifle into the University of Texas Austin Tower, and he began to methodically shoot passers-by. By the time he is killed by police, he's murdered over a dozen people and injured more than 30. I'm sure you've seen the movie on TV. A lot of people have. Okay, Fred, we got to take a call here. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, how you doing there?
Okay.
I was just calling about, I wanted to know your opinion on legalizing drugs.
Legalizing drugs?
Yeah. Like marijuana, not the hard drugs, you know.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Fred. You and I differ a little bit on this, but there are different kinds of drugs, Fred.
Yes.
You can shoot heroin into your arm, and within
Yes.
a few minutes be laying there dead from an overdose.
Yes.
You can snort crack cocaine once and be addicted. And your whole life, your whole day is just tied up with running after that drug, running after the money to buy it,
Yes.
or using it. Your whole life gets tied up, just sucked into that. Okay, with marijuana, Fred, it's not addictive. Physically, they say there could be some psychological addiction. But there needs to be a dichotomy between these very hard drugs, the methamphetamines, cocaine, the morphine, the opium, and the more mundane, weaker drugs like marijuana. Not calling for legalization, but we definitely don't want to send some 18-year-old kid to prison for 10 years because he's dabbling in marijuana. All right. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, Chuck.
Yes.
What are you looking at, you gay piece of shit?
Must be some communist from Haiti, Fred. Doesn't like what we said today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
I like your show, and my friend also has a cable access show, and I was wondering if you'd ever seen it. It's called Naughty Poo Pie.
Call what?
Naughty Poo Pie.
Not yet. What time's it on?
It's on Monday night at 9. It's a skit format show, and we discuss certain political things and some things that have really no meaning at all in skit format. It's on every Monday night at 9.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very little. Okay, Fred, we got another call right here. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air. You wanted to know what color your pants are today, Fred. Are you color coordinated again?
Yes.
Right down to the T.
Did you ever hear of William Crystal?
No, I haven't. What happened?
He's a former advisor to Vice President Quayle and head of an enterprise called Project for a Republican Future. And he has a dream ticket. His dream ticket for the presidential elections is Colin Powell, General Colin Powell, and this woman who was elected governor of New Jersey, Whitman. Now, something I thought was interesting about Mr. Powell, he contributed $1,000 to two Senate candidates in Virginia's four-way Senate contest. Powell gave $1,000 to Democrat Douglas Weiler and Republican Marshall Coleman.
Okay, Fred, I think we got a call waiting here, and we're running out of time, so we're going to try and take one more call. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, this is Chuck B.
Yes.
Hi, Chuck. I just wanted to ask you a few questions about your stands on some issues.
All right. Okay, you got one question because we only got 1 minute left.
Okay. Well, what's your view on Don Brill? Do you think he's a legitimate challenger to Gunderson? Or, he was running before you declared, and then you declared. Did you lose confidence in Don, or?
Okay, let me tell you. Once again, that's why we had Joanne Lester. One of the reasons why was because of this ballot situation. Don Brill is in a mini election with Steve Gunderson. Brill versus Gunderson. If you're going to vote Republican, you got to vote straight down that ticket. If you're not a Republican, you got to go over here to the Democratic side, and you're going to vote straight down that ticket. You can't vote for Bear here and then jump over here and vote for Thompson and then jump over here and vote for somebody else. You got to stay in your own column, in your own party, and that's what the primary system is for, is to eliminate it down to one individual from each party. So after the primary, there'll be one Democrat, one Republican, one U.S. taxpayer party. And then you'll have a three-way race going into November. So Don Brill's prime objective right now is to beat Steve Gunderson. It has nothing to do with Chuck Lee or Harvey Stour or Kruger or Bear or Rash. This is where their race is. This is do or die for Brill right here. So Brill is running against Steve Gunderson. I'm not running against Brill. I've got my own party ticket over here. No No one challenged me, so I have a first-round bye. It's just like a basketball tournament. I'm in the finals. Brill has to win his primary to get through the finals. Well, we're out of time. I want to thank you once again for tuning in. Thank Roy Rogers Hoff, Sr., and Craig Lee on camera, and Chris and Cliff Economaki, and Joel Dupre, and the vast majority of the people on the phone. I want to thank you once again for tuning in. We'll see you next Monday night, 9 p.m., right here on the Cow Report. I've been your host, Chuck Lee. Good afternoon, and have a nice day. May God bless you. And there you have it.
Gut-busting episode of